are over here, and just a picture of my sister Laura in the back there. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about our story and what brought us here, and meeting the other families, and kind of what led me into becoming more of an advocate instead of just sitting silently and crying and hating the world. I'll start with what I have written here. Just don't mind me, I'm going to have to read, otherwise I'll cry. Look at everyone. One day, one single day, walk behind our provincial correctional facilities doors is all it takes to lose your rights to life, liberty, and security. For my little sister Laura, it was 5. For a single charge of assault, EMDC sentenced her to death. No trial, no judge, no jury, no conviction. Only negligence, ignorance, and incompetence. Upon arrest, the officer stated Laura had complained about just receiving the H1N1 vaccine and that it was making her sick and her throat hurt very badly. And he chalked it up to nerves. A young 5-foot little girl, 90 pounds, nervous, getting in trouble with the law. She had just been stalked and beat by her boyfriend for quite some time, so she was in hiding, trying to get away from him. Her life was in crisis at the time. They found where she was, and a fight broke out, and she swung, and another girl swung, and she was arrested. Kind of a situation that I could see happening to me, you know what I mean? It's a situation that can happen to anybody at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you throw a swing, and you can end up in the embassy. The following morning, she was held in the police station. They couldn't wake her, so obviously she was sick. And they took her to the hospital, like you're supposed to do when you find somebody who is unable to take normal breaths or walk or take care of themselves. She was released with paperwork stating to monitor her closely, push fluids, and if anything were to change, to bring her back. She also failed the jail's H1N1 screening, because I'm sure a lot of us remember in 2009 there was an epidemic going around. It took about 8,000 Canadians. They were aware of the epidemic going on. They had protocol. Their protocol was if somebody fails the screening, you put them in the medical range, you monitor them closely, you keep them away from those people because they're sick. Those instructions never made it past intake. And she was placed in general population, and her health rapidly declined. The inmates stepped in as her caretakers. She was swollen, her hands and feet were swollen. They carried her to the toilet, which is probably embarrassing on a good day. She couldn't do that herself. She was too weak to press the water dispenser on her own. My parents, an autopilot, interviewed a lot of people afterwards. A lot. And we got a lot of stories about what was happening to my sister. For 3 days, inmates carried Laura to see a nurse. On the one day that they were there, that they were able to see somebody. The nurse testified that Laura was lethargic, her heart was racing, and she was severely dehydrated. Through a pathologist, we learned that she was in shock and life-saving measures should have immediately been taken. They were not. Nurses' instructions to monitor and push fluids were never relayed to the staff. Laura's bail date finally came, but it was stood down because she was too weak to stand before the judge. She was taken in a wheelchair, escorted through the courtroom, instead of the back doors, with H1N1, in a wheelchair down, put back in the car. People thinking that she would be taken to the hospital. She was not. The following night, after still having nothing to eat or drink for 3 days, after being slammed and grabbed by the arm and jerked around by the female inmates, the female guards, the ones that are supposed to care and protect and make sure people are okay, are the ones throwing my sister around because she was shuffling and holding herself and not able to move too fast. She was dying. She moaned in pain for help until her voice no longer worked. Her cellmates cried for help, begged and screamed for somebody to help my sister, and no help came. Sometime late in the night, Laura had fallen out of bed to the cold concrete and couldn't lift herself back up again. So Tracy, her cellmate, pounded and screamed until eventually somebody showed up. They testified. They came in and Laura was slumped on the floor. They offered her juice crystals. She was unable to respond, get a word out. They picked up my dying sister and found a spare mattress, and they blocked her in that bed so she would not be a nuisance to anybody anymore. And she died that night for 5 days. Tracy helped me were her final words. And never again will I get my sister back. Never again will her kids get to see their mom. Never again will my mother have her daughter back again. Because they just didn't care. They just, plain and simple, didn't care. When finally the range was off of lockdown, my mom got a call just before my sister's funeral saying that Laura was actually very sick, very, very, very sick, and multiple people asked for help on her behalf. My mother was told that she died of an overdose. That's what the jail released to my mom, that she died of an overdose. So that's what we were struggling with, right? That's what they chalked it up to. That's what the guards were going around and saying on different ranges, that she died of an overdose, it wasn't our fault. In earshot of other inmates who reached out and contacted our family. So here I am, almost 10 years later. November will be 10 years. I'm still angry. I'm still hurting. I'm still waiting for justice. Only now I also carry the pain and frustrations from dozens more families. Thank you guys. I chose to open a public Facebook group after meeting these families and learning about other families all over Ontario who are struggling. I know how isolating it can feel and how we felt before meeting you guys, and I'm sure a lot of other people felt. It's just isolating, and they're shamed, and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say, my daughter, my lover died in a jail. It's just instantly under this umbrella of, well, you know, they shouldn't have been to jail. Oh, well, they shouldn't have done drugs, or they shouldn't have done this. Like, that's unacceptable. We need to ask ourselves as a society, we are paying the tax money. This is all tax funded. We are paying to punish these people. Do we want to put them somewhere and hope that they come back out? Because theyese people are coming back out. Either they're coming out in body bait, or they're coming out and they're going to be a part of our society. Do we want to give them the skills so they're not going to be heavy on our tax dollars anymore, so that they can, you know, live? But then there's another death, and another death, and another death, and more recommendations, and more recommendations. And I find at this point it completely dishonoring to have a family wait years to actually get the honest answers of what happened. I didn't know half of what happened to my sister until the inquest. So for the families that are still waiting, I can only imagine how frustrating it is to have hearsay surrounding your loved one. And then to have this glimmer of hope, like my sister's case, they made 10 recommendations. And my sister's children were very young, and I remember finding a silver lining in the clouds, like, oh my gosh, yay, you know what I mean? Like, they get it, they know how to prevent these people from dying, they're gonna do something about it, and then when her kids grow up, I can, you know, somehow turn this story of tragedy into a story of hope, or martyrism, or something productive. And, like, look at us, look at me still here, right? So, not too long after I started the public Facebook group, and started talking to the Hamilton families, learning more about actually looking into the cases of everybody who's dying, and then the most recent death happened with Sean Jr. Tron. And I remember hearing that it was only hearsay. I was speaking actually with one of the reporters, and they couldn't publicly say what the father had stated about upwards of 40 minutes that inmates were banging and yelling and asking for help to save this guy. And because it was hearsay, and it was from one person to the other, they couldn't publish that. But I remember just a light bulb going off in me, and I'm thinking, for fuck's sakes, how can you take a Canadian with their human rights, their Charter of Rights, a citizen of our country, and lock them in a cell, and there be like a life or death crisis? Like, how can somebody be sitting in there and either having a heart attack or an aneurysm, or somebody's overdosing or dying of pneumonia, and you are screaming and yelling and hoping that your voice carries out to somebody who cares, or that a guard gives a crap? It's just, I'm like, it's got to be illegal. It's got to be illegal. That can't be acceptable in Canada. So I was just like, I just started running my mouth saying it's a human rights violation without any fact checking. So that's what I did for the last couple of weeks, is I read and I studied my ass off, and I tried to find any violation, anything I could think of, to try and make them accountable. For Christ's sake, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something we can do. So I went through and I found quite a few that would kind of support this emergency 911 button that I feel like they have a human right to access. Because who was the guy at Laura's inquest? The big bald guy that I hated his guts? The superintendent. He got on stand and he said, "We are not a hospital, and you cannot expect us to act or perform like a hospital." Well, you're right. You're not a hospital. We cannot expect that of you. But what we can expect is that our rights are met, that our privileges that entitle us to have proper health care are met, that our medications are met on time, and that people are fed and showered and treated in a humane way. I don't know. You get it, right? You get it. Treat them right. Like, these are humans. So the Nelson Mandela rules that you brought up actually was pretty insightful. And what I found is that through the UN agreement, collective countries have agreed that these are a litmus and these are standards that we should be abiding by. So I know that it's not technically a law that they broke, but it's a litmus where it's been used before as like a standard, and something's done important once, it can be done again type of thing, right? So I wanted to petition the House of Commons, and researching, and I'm downloading everything I can, and I find out, well, okay, I can't petition the House of Commons because this is provincial, not federal. So then I got into learning about our provincial legislation and how to put it together properly. So this is what I came up with, and I did this from my couch. I'm not a proper student, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just somebody who just cares, and I'm sick to death meeting new people doing this. So the petition I came up with is a petition in support of emergency 911 buttons in every correctional cell to the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Whereas the Solicitor General, Ministry of Corrections, has failed to provide the right to life by delaying, not responding, or dismissing the need of 911 emergency access in a prompt and timely manner, causing numerous preventable deaths in provincial jails. Whereas unsafe conditions, neglect of duties, and violations of the UN agreements, Nelson Mandela Rules 24 through 29 and 31, access to health care, in particular, Rule 27 states, all prisoners are entitled to prompt medical attention in the case of an emergency, and quality and timelessness of medical care should be no different than if the person was not incarcerated. Refusal or omission of prompt 911 access also violates Section 12 of the Canadian Charter of Rights, cruel and unusual punishment, Section 7, Part 3 of the Public Health Care Act, and the right to life, liberty, and security. We, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly of Ontario as follows: that the Solicitor General, Ministry of Corrections, take immediate action to install an emergency 911 hardwire button in every cell to address the need of prompt, time-sensitive, life-saving measures. I know there's a fat chance in hell I'm getting a button. I know it. But if I can be a pain in her ass, And if you guys could help support me, you know, that would be awesome. Anyways, thanks.
Just to check your petitions on the back of the room, right?
Yes.
Signs? Yeah. And then Lynn, did you want to come and speak about